All right, fucking intro. We're starting this. I don't want to do an intro for what was maybe one of the worst series we've seen this year. It was tough. It was bad. I mean, there's good things to talk about. Christian Scott was awesome. We know that. Francisco Lindor swinging the bat better. There are some things to talk about here, but relatively speaking, this is a more negative episode than positive. We're still going to talk a lot about Christian Scott because he was unbelievable, and I know James has been foaming at the mouth to talk about this guy because the premonition has come true with all the hype and all the excitement, and he came up and he just fucking shoved it down the Rays' throat. He was incredible, but there's a lot of bad. So before we do get going into that, make sure you guys follow us on all our social media at Mets'd on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Me and James are going to get back on the video grind with the Instagram and TikTok stuff. It's been like 2 weeks, still gaining followers, so we've been lucky, but get back on the grind here. YouTube channel, Mets'd Podcast, if you want to see that. And if you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, drop us a rating, drop us a review, download, and subscribe. Especially if you want that shout out, drop us a review. James, what's going on? How we doing?
How we doing? We're doing good. So crazy and ironic that the Mets are playing a series in Tampa Bay the same weekend as the Kendrick and Drake beef. Like hits all-time highs. Just an ironic level of people who may or may not have committed crimes that are undergoing them happening at the same time. But I don't think I can forgive the Mets for blowing this game on Sunday and not allowing us to like start this episode happy about Christian Scott because this is the first time team's been swept since the first week of the year. It feels like shit. There's a lot of things that's wrong with this team right now, and it's just this isn't like a doom and gloom like the season's over episode. Of course not, because like this still
No.
feels like bad play, like within the regular ebb and flow of a baseball season, where we had 10 bad games start the year, then we had like 20 pretty good games. Now we just had like 10 bad games again. We haven't won a series since LA, which suddenly feels like a very long time ago. That was 2 countries ago for me. That was an entire Knicks series win ago for the whole city of New York, but it's just it feels bad. A lot of things are not good, and I think that some I think will get better, but some I don't know how they're going to get better.
Yeah, so let's start it off with probably the biggest issue right now, and that is Pete Alonso at the plate, or as I'm going to be calling him, Peter, or maybe Pat until he starts to hit like a Major League Baseball player again. But Peter Alonso is just so fucked up at the plate right now. He is not playing well at all. And we've dove into some of the numbers. There are some underlying things that are concerning, I think, to say the least, with Pete. It just seems like a lot of it is probably mental, and he's mentally in the wrong spot. I've mentioned it a couple times on the podcast before. I think he's trying to hit singles way too much, and a couple of the numbers do kind of back this up a little bit here. But 2 for his last 43 with a homer and his double as his only hits. It's fucking bad, man. It's so bad. This team can't win when their second best offensive player can't do anything.
He's colder right now than Lindor was to start the year. Lindor started the season, I think it was 5 for 53, which is about a .95 average. Right now, Pete is 2 for his last 43, which is what, like a .47 average. Like it's like shocking how bad he is. And it's funny you talk about the single thing. We were going through stats before the show, just trying to like gather our minds and gather some stuff for you guys here. But Pete, for some reason, right now has this right field approach. And it's not like the right field approach where we've kind of felt like a lot of times in Pete Alonso's career, like when he's driving the ball to that right center field spot, like when he's getting it into the gap there and over the fence there, it kind of feels like that's when he's at his best, when he's really on it. But it's worse than that right now. He's hitting the ball about 10 percentage points higher to the opposite field than he ever has for full season in his career. It's almost 40% opposite field right now. He's never been a guy who's even gotten that to 30% in his career. So he's pulling it less. He's hitting it up the middle less. And even with that approach, it's just he's not been. I hate when people use the word clutch because I feel like the word clutch is kind of thrown like stretched way too thin to describe how players perform certain situations. Like I don't think you can really ever be clutch in like April or May as a baseball player. Like Pete Alonso's played 3 playoff games in his career. None of them, they weren't even actually playoff games. So I don't even know if if there's any clutchness there. But pull it down a little bit. He has 4 hits run to scoring position all year. 3
That's bad.
times in the last 4 games, Pete Alonso has been at the plate with a man on third base and fewer than 2 outs, and he hasn't driven him home. Today, with a chance to blow the game open when the Mets were on the ball trying to get it to this Rays bullpen, he had an at-bat with the bases loaded, and I think it was the first pitch of the at-bat, grounds right into a double play. And it's just like, again, I think there's some elements of that are clutch, but some elements of that are just like situational hitting. And just when you're not hitting at all, it's hard to hit situationally, and Pete is so lost right now. Even Ron was talking about there was a swing and miss he had in the 7th or 8th inning on just a regular old fastball low in the zone. And that's a pitch that Pete usually fucking murders. And he was nowhere close to it. His back leg flew up, his shoulder flew out. And it's just, he's so lost. He's as lost right now as he's ever been in his career, which is not a great spot for this Mets team.
No, I was looking at the run value charts for him earlier, and he is -6 on balls in the heart of the zone. -6 run value on balls in the heart of the zone for a guy who is one of the best power hitters we have ever seen play first base to start a career right now. Like we know he's the fourth fastest player to 200 home runs in Major League Baseball history. So for him to have -6 run value on balls in the heart of the zone, and for those of you who don't know, those are the pitches right down the middle of the plate. Those are the pitches you're supposed to crush. Those aren't pitchers' pitches. Those are the ones where the hitters have the advantage. And he's -6 there. He just isn't doing anything right. And again, I'm going to be anecdotal here before using some of the stats that I'm sure that you wrote down. But it seems like Pete just doesn't know what pitches to swing at and what pitches to take right now. And then he gets behind the count and he's pressing, and it feels like the contract is weighing heavy on his head that he's like, I probably got to play better. I need to get my average up, because if I can hit 270, I can get the stupid Los Angeles Angels to come in and give me $35 million a year, because he's a 270 hitter who hit 40 home runs as opposed to a 230 hitter who hit 40 home runs. But it's just like, everything that Pete Alonso is and does, he's not doing right now, and it is absolutely crushing this team, which is just, it's frustrating because I don't think Pete's bad. I've for sure haven't lost faith in Peter Alonso being a good baseball player, but he's not Pete right now. He is not Pete for sure.
This bit stupid. I'm not gonna acknowledge it. He's still Pete to me. But something that he's not doing right now is the fact that Pete was always a very aggressive hitter, especially on pitches in the zone. So seeing that negative run value and pitches in the heart is bad. And it's kind of borne out by the fact that we're seeing he's not making that much damage. All his opposite field, it's not that much damage. One of the lowest pull rates of his career, it's not that much damage. He has one of the lowest hard hit rates of his career right now by far. Right
That's
now,
the concerning part.
Pete Alonso, usually a guy who hits the ball harder than almost every single player in the league. He's only 30% hard hit rate in the season. That's in the 11th percentile of all Major League Baseball players. That means 89% of players who've made contact with a baseball this year are hitting it hard more often than Pete. That's 23% hard hit rate over the last 2 weeks when he's cratered like this. Something else that Pete's not doing that he used to do, and this was true last year and it's true again right now, is he's no longer jumping at the first pitch. We don't know if teams are approaching him differently, but he has been down 0-1 this year more often than he's been up 1-0. And his first pitch swing rate is also 10 percentage points lower than it was during most of his career. Like last year and this year, 10 percentage points lower than it was most of his career. So something that changed. Another thing with that, he's making less contact on pitches in the zone. He was usually an above 70% zone contact guy, which is a great spot to be. That means whenever pitches in the zone, he's making contact with it. It's in the 60s right now, while his chase contact is high. You don't really want chase contact. Like chase contact
No.
is good to a degree, but if you're overdoing chase contact, that's how you put a lot of balls weakly in play. And that's where Pete is, and that sucks. When this cold streak started for Pete a few weeks ago, right after the Giants series, his triple slash was 263, 340, 516. It's a very good season. That's exactly where we want Pete to be. A 260 hitter with a
Yes.
340 on base, 516 slug. Especially right now when you consider the fact that the league-wide OPS is like 680. That was good for like a 150 WRC plus, that 856 OPS. That's the lead. Right now, as it currently stands, he's 206, 295, 420. Pete Alonso right now has an on-base percentage under 300, which is a place that you can never, ever, ever live your Pete Alonso. I'm not comparing these two players, but that's like Chris Davis vibes when you're on base, when you're a big power hitter, but your on-base percentage drops that low. That's a player that isn't even a daily, like everyday player in the baseball lineup. I mean, I'm not saying that that's Pete, because Pete definitely is still that, of course, but that's where that's the trouble you get in. That's when, like, if you're a player who doesn't have pedigree, you risk going on the bench. And the craziest thing about this Pete Alonso cold streak and Francisco Lindor's hot streak is right now on Sunday, May 5th, as we're doing this episode after the Mets game, Francisco Lindor now has a higher batting average than Pete Alonso. 207 versus 206. And the fact that we've swung around and gotten to that point, and it's still only the first week of May, considering that Francisco Lindor had 5 hits since his 55 at bats, it's ridiculous. And it just speaks to how ice cold Pete is right now. And it sucks. I don't know what's going to break him out of it. Everything just feels off. I think I don't know. This happened last time he went to Tampa too, which is weird. Maybe he gets a little nervous playing in front of friends and family close to home.
Sure
but
does.
I don't know what to fix him.
Pete needs like a vacation. Pete needs to like, I don't know,
baseball
like,
player. He plays every day. You got to play.
Yeah, but even seeing him on the bench, like he's just like, he looks confused, he looks stressed out, and maybe that's just Pete's normal look of looking confused and stressed and not really like what's going on, but he doesn't even look like the player that we've seen. And again, he is struggling, so I understand. I don't want to see necessarily him being like happy about him being bad, but at the same time, it just seems like he's a guy who could use a day off at the absolute worst. And this is something that the Mets just kind of can't do because they don't have a backup first baseman. And I'm not saying that this is a fundamental problem with the Mets, but if there was ever a time that someone needs a day off, it seems like Pete Alonso needs one right now, where like he can just reset his head. I'm not playing today. I'm sitting. I am watching. This is not my fault if the team wins. It's not my fault if the team loses because nothing is going right for him. And it seems like we don't know Pete. We've spoken a couple times to him. Very, very nice guy. Awesome dude. Very friendly. But from all the interactions and mannerisms, everything that we've seen, it does seem like Pete lives and dies with his performance. And right now he's performing poorly.
You can even see he did the post game press conference today, and he pulled this is I got this from Meek Phil, a friend of the program, on Twitter, where he just goes, "Oh yeah, it's like it's on me. I just gotta be better. I know it can be better. I gotta be better." And that's just like so reminiscent of all the bullshit that Scherzer was spewing last year when things were just going
Yeah.
horribly. It's just bad vibes. I'm not saying the team has bad vibes either, because I feel like the team more often than not this year have been like positive and good and like having fun with each other. But just something about Pete. Again, he goes through cold streaks like this before, and then he gets blazing hot. Like, I'm not worried about Pete Alonso's
Yes.
production over the long haul. It's just inside of this thing right now, he's doing things he's never done in his career that are giving me 5% more panic than I've ever had about the potential production of Pete Alonso. And also something in the back of every Mets fan's mind right now, the fact that I'm seeing all the replies, the Mets community is happening on Twitter. He's losing tens of millions of dollars with this cold streak.
Tens of
Like,
millions. Oh, yeah.
he's in a spot right now where unless he gets ballistically blazing hot, he won't be able to have like the 350 on base and like the 550 slug that gets him to like the 900 OPS that gets him the monster contract. And we're really looking ahead right now, but like, where does that even? We're not going to talk about it because May 5th, there's still a whole season to play. Like, I don't even know where this puts him for a negotiation right now. Like, how can Pete Alonso playing like this for 2 straight years ask for a three-year contract?
Again,
I
it's
truly don't
it's
know how.
the Angels and the Rockies factor. Like just hoping that one of those teams, like, we don't care. We're going to give you the same contract no matter what because we want you. That's the best case scenario for him if he continues to play like this. Again, we don't think this is going to happen, but we're giving you the numbers and the stats to show you what's going on because Pete made a comment this offseason, and this will be the last time I bring it up, at least in this episode, about wanting to be a 270 hitter, wanting to raise that batting average. And I know that like Keith Hernandez and those guys loved it, and that's a little bit more of old school baseball. But personally, and I think I can speak for you two here, James, I don't give a fuck what his batting average is. His OPS should be 900 every single year. And if it's not in the 800s at the absolute worst, 40 homers, 100 RBIs. If Pete Alonso's hitting 150 and he hits 40 homers with 110 RBIs and his OPS is 800, I don't give a shit how many hits he missed out on because he's doing the job that we need him to. The home runs, the RBIs, the OPS, getting on base and slugging. He seems to have this weird thing in his head where he's like, I need to hit a certain average. And it's just so bullshit. It's such bullshit. And the opposite field numbers are telling you that. The weird passivity at the plate, I think, is telling you that he's trying to be too perfect, it seems like, rather than going up and just taking some fucking hacks.
It's also funny that again, it's like this. It's just like things that like people say in baseball that they keep learning about other things. Like everyone's like, we just gotta get Pete the protection. Once JD Martinez comes in this lineup, like
Yeah.
we got it. This cold streak started the day that JD Martinez came into this lineup. That is the day this whole all those stats I said started. The 2 for 43, the Friday night City Field, JD Martinez's first game, which is like the irony of that. Which I mean, I like poo-pooed it because there's been a lot of research done that says like the guy hitting behind you is less important than the people hitting in front of you. And Pete has
Yes.
had tons of men on base in this streak too. His left on
So
base rate
many.
is disgustingly bad. It's like he's the four hitter who keeps coming up with the bases loaded and he keeps not driving in any runs whatsoever. But it's funny that he finally has like theoretically the best protection he's had in the last few years as a Met, and he's not doing shit with it. It's just I think he will get better. I think he probably has to relax. Like he's chasing more than he has to. I mentioned that. It's just, maybe I didn't mention that, but the chase rates like gone up over 40%, like as this cold streak has gone too. And it's just, that's usually the sign that someone's pressing, that someone's like not doing something that someone's just uncomfortable. Someone's a little nervous. The pressing chase rate, like expanding the strike zone. And that's where he is. And I don't think this is something that's going to extend forever, but this is something that is happening right now. And it's really hard for the Mets to win when their number one run producer is not producing any runs.
Need him to be Big Meat Pete again. He's very much just like a shell of himself right now. Love Pete. I won't say I'm not worried, but I'm not scared. I think I'm in the I think if there's a meter, I'm worried, but I'm not scared.
Yeah, the panic button is not out, but you've thought about it, but not really. But it's
I
also,
I I know where the panic button is, And I
yeah.
will use in case of emergency, but the emergency hasn't happened yet. I still feel safe.
He needs to go 2 for his next 43 for me to actually be concerned about this. Like
Yeah, that's what I'm
this needs to
saying.
be a
Yeah,
4 for 90 streak. But you know what, guys, we're gonna do this again because why not? We just keep doing this next Friday night, City Field, Braves, Christian Scott on the mound. Like we're giving Pete Alonso the biggest fucking standing ovation we could even do. I'm gonna scream my
got to
balls off. I might bring a sign. I might take my shirt off and wing it around my head. I'm gonna
bring an
make
air
this
horn.
guy.
Boop, 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 boop.
We gotta be as positive as possible for Pete because Pete wears this stuff on his shoulders so much.
That
We
guy
gotta help
can't
him.
handle a boo.
No, we
He
gotta help him.
cannot handle a boo.
You guys can't give him the Francisco Lindor treatment that you give him when he struggles. Not the people listening to this podcast. I'm talking about the
Yeah, of course not.
the greater Mets fan out there. But just gotta be positive for Pete. But there's another problem right
I'm
now
talking to
happening with the
you, Joe
Mets.
from Staten Island.
Yeah, Joe from Massapequa calling in. What's up with this Lindor guy? Why is he making $34 million? I feel like he should earn half that. It's ridiculous. Give more to the teachers and the firefighters. But there's a bigger problem happening to this Mets team right now, and it's a
Way
problem
bigger.
that I don't see any way it gets solved, and it's right now causing them to lose games game after game, and it's the stolen bases. This is
It's
I don't
despicable.
want to exaggerate. This is a complete fucking fiasco. It's unspeakably bad. It was so apparent today, just to be anecdotal about it, when it was the third inning. I think the Mets had just tied the game or taken the lead, yada yada. Caballero gets a 1-out walk. Whoever's hitting behind him gets out. We have a pickoff throw on him. Severino, I thought he nabbed him because it was a play where Pete kind of came up on the throw, but he got Caballero's heel, and before his hand got in, they
Yeah.
reviewed it, and they still said no, and I was like, fucking close one, but I understand you can't turn it over, but they really look good. And then like 2 pitches late, and then he steals second base immediately, and then he scores on a Johnny DeLuca bloop, which was good foreshadowing. Gave the Rays the lead in the third inning on a Johnny DeLuca bloop. Good foreshadowing to how this game would end, but it's so bad right now. The Mets, these numbers don't even feel real. We've allowed 52 stolen bases in 34 games. The next team who's allowed the most stolen bases is the Rays, the team we just played. It's 36. It's a 16 stolen base difference. 16 stolen base difference. There's a few teams in the league that haven't given up 16 stolen bases. one by mine being the Arizona Diamondbacks, who've given up 8 all season. There haven't even been 16 stolen base attempts on the Arizona Diamondbacks this year. And the Mets have that more of a gap between them and the team that's allowed the next most steals. It's shocking. And also, we played the Rays this weekend. They've allowed the second most stolen bases in the league. I don't remember us stealing very many bases at all. I remember us trying to steal very many bases at all. They've had massive problems with catching between Ben Rortford and Rene Pinto, and we did nothing against that. But they're stealing
Yeah, and
every
Alex
single time.
Jackson now.
We gave up 7 stolen bases today in one game against this team. Jose Caballero had 4. I know a lot of fantasy baseball players out there are really excited that Caballero probably shifted the whole category for them in one day. And also, I went back. I wanted to see the last time the Mets allowed 7 stolen bases in the game. You know when it was? You won't believe the game it was.
Okay, I'm gonna go with a Noah Syndergaard start.
No, much more recently than that. It was actually 2023.
Okay.
Game at Citi Field. The Mets against the Rays. It was the Alvarez, Vientos, Alonso home run day.
Wow, that was a great day.
Yeah, a great day. We were in the ballpark. I don't think we realized that we were drunk. I don't think we realized they had 7 steals, but like that was the last time
clue.
it happened. And it's happened a few times since then, but this is the first time this happened. 2024, a team at 7 stolen bases in one game. It's fucking shocking. Every single time a guy gets on base, he has second, all to himself.
And I've told you, like, when we were at the ballpark, I was like, the Mets just don't hold runners on well. Like, I don't think in general, like, I think the middle infield's a little.
You're bullshitting with that.
No, there's no bullshit here. This is the difference from when you play the game and then you're the Mr.
In high
Stats guy
school.
over here. But yeah, in high school, that's when you hold runners on. That's when you learn it. That's you're like working in and out, back and forth. The Mets don't hold runners on well at all, especially up the middle.
No, I'm pushing back on that because the Mets are holding runners on up the middle. It's just the fact that there's a lack of communication going on between the pitchers and the fielders and the coaching right now.
That was one time. That was more anecdotal. But we're back to where I'm going is the Mets don't hold on runners well. The pitchers don't hold on runners well, particularly. Like Adam Ottavino slow to the plate. Edwin Diaz is slow to the plate. All our pitchers are really slow to the plate. I feel like nobody slide steps. I feel like nobody has any sort of urgency either. And then compounded on the fact that our catchers have not been great either at making even close to good throws down to second base either.
It's the fact that we're like every pitcher slow to the plate and how consistently it is against every single pitcher makes me think that it's like deeper than that. Like we always say that this is about pitchers, not catchers. The Mets are the team where I think it might be a little bit more about the catcher because the common thread for a lot of this is Omar Narvaez. But again, today it's also been Tomas Nido. But Tomas Nido has already thrown out 2 guys this year, I think, or 3 guys, all 3 players. So I think Narvaez.
I think he's thrown out all 3. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he has. He's only played like 2 weeks of baseball, but it's just that it makes me think that it's deeper than that. Because how could every pitcher on the roster be slow to to the plate. Like I know
Well,
Ottavino's
the
always
only
had these
reason
problems.
I say that is because I could totally see a pitching philosophy where the Mets go, we want you to be at your best on every single pitch, almost giving up the run in order for you to not slide step, to not rush, to not do this or that, because nobody does it. I don't know any pitcher that slide steps on the Mets that I can think about. So it feels like that's almost a philosophy thing at this point.
But this is getting to a point where it's become so extreme that maybe if that is the Mets philosophy, and we don't know if it is or isn't, that has to be revisited. Because as of right now, the Mets are on pace to allow the most stolen bases ever in a
Now,
season where
I've got
we've tracked what?
I've got some catching stats for you, by the way, to interrupt you here.
Please.
Omar Narvaez is 44th out of 48 in terms of pop time to second base on average this year. The only guys that have been worse are Tyler Stevenson, dog shit catcher, Jose Trevino, gold glover, dog shit catcher, Victor Caratini, dog shit catcher, and Keber Ruiz, who's a great hitter, not a good catcher defensively, especially on the pop time thing.
Good framer.
Omar Narvaez is 2.03 seconds. That's almost like 2/10 of a second than the top guy, which is crazy. There's a huge difference there. Nito is in the middle. He's at 1.96. He's around guys like Yainer Diaz, Danny Jansen. This isn't a good name to be around. Travis Darno. So maybe he's not actually. Maybe he's still also awful at this too. Because in terms of catchers, 23 out of 48 is the middle, but that's also still not good. So
No. The worst part of this is like with all this, we've only caught 3 guys. Like teams are stealing against us at
yeah,
will. We've caught 3 guys out of 55 stolen base attempts. That's a 95% success rate for the other team. And the third guy was caught on Sunday, Ahmed Rosario, and he looked back after because it looked like a very obvious hit and run where we threw him out by 2
yes.
steps. He looked at Jose Caballero like, what the hell? So like one of the guys was bullshit. 95% success rate is disgustingly bad. The Red Sox have a 92%, the Cubs have an 88%, the Rangers and Cardinals about 87%. But those teams have not allowed 52 stolen bases. They're in the 20s and 30s in stolen bases allowed. And I said it before, I'll say it again. We are on pace to allow the most stolen bases ever since these defensive stats, stolen base for teams, have been tracked. That's since
And
1956. The most ever, guys. The most ever.
yeah. Now I'll say this: there's a little light at the end of the tunnel. Whenever Francisco Alvarez does come back, he was 8th in Major League Baseball with his pop time down to second base at 1.89, which is like it's up there with Patrick Bailey, Gabriel Moreno, Shea Langoliers, Christian Betancourt, like some of the guys who have the best arms, best pop times. JT Realmuto, same spot as him. And to be fair, it feels like teams have been running a lot more since Alvarez has been gone, and you brought up Narvaez being a huge issue. And the Mets have been playing really poorly since Alvarez has been gone, too. It seems like this guy was a way more vital cog to the team than maybe we even thought.
But here's the thing. How many caught stealing the Alvarez have this year? I know.
He
Don't look
only
it
had
up.
three
It's
attempts.
0.
He only had three
Oh,
attempts.
only 3
Yeah.
attempts. All right, only 3 attempts relevant because the attempts are what's insane right now. We're 52 stolen
With
bases.
throws.
Teams are averaging almost 2 stolen bases a game. I can't even believe it. No one's allowed 200 stolen bases in a season since the 2001 Red Sox. 2001 Red
Okay.
Sox. Even last year in the hyper stolen environment, I think the White Sox gave it the most. It was 173. So it's been 23 years the team allowed 200 stolen bases. We're on pace right now to allow 248
Smash it.
with a
Yeah.
95% success rate for the other team. It's unspeakable how bad this is. And again, maybe it is Alvarez. That was a big part of it, but there's also definitely going to be a broader conversation when he gets close to coming back. And that conversation is going to be centered around the fact that it's hard to justify a roster spot for Omar Narvaez besides his contract. How bad he is defensively and how totally not scary he is as a hitter. What is the argument besides the contract?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like, yeah, we always talk about how cool it is to have a left-handed hitting catcher, but he doesn't hit. So it's like, does it even really matter? I joked with you at the game. I was like, it's like having the Mets don't score that many runs every game because for the last 4 years, while everyone has DH, the Mets still hit the pitcher ninth, and that's Omar Narvaez right now. He's hitting like a pitcher.
It's just, and again, when you add on the defense, it's so bad. Even the fact that we have this game Friday night, the game the Mets, they didn't get smoked this series, but the game they felt like they got smoked because they wound up coming back late. And I thought it would be a great sign for the rest of the series that the game the Mets were down like 8-3 in the second
Yeah.
inning. They forced the Rays to use all their relief pitchers, but that's the game Narvaez caught, and it's just like, oh man, wait, did he start today? I think he did start on Sunday actually. Yeah, he did start on Sunday. I
Yeah,
don't
he did
remember.
start Sunday.
He did start Sunday, and there's a
Oh,
game where
so he
Severino
threw
was
out.
way off early.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there might be a problem here with Omar Narvaez. And to be fair, neither of us were particularly excited when we signed him. We went, that doesn't really make sense to sign a backup catcher ish for $8 million a year. Like, what was the thought process behind this, Mr. Billy Epler? But we weren't allowed to talk to him. So
Yeah, and I just think Nido's also, again, defensively just significantly better, and hitting not much worse. So what's the issue there? I don't know why when he comes. It also seems like just everyone seems to love Nido. We heard Francisco Lindor in a TikTok from the official Mets TikTok channel before the season. He was your best friend on the team, Tomas Nido. Just let him
Yeah.
be back in the clubhouse then.
Yeah, I mean, that's also probably the problem too, though, is that we love Tomas Nido and he's also bad. Like, I mean,
He's
that's
better.
just
He's
how it
better than
is.
the other option. It doesn't really matter if how
He is
bad you
better
are
than Omar,
objectively.
though.
It's
Yeah.
about what else you have on the roster. And also, when did Alvarez get hurt? That was in the Dodgers series, right? No, it was earlier than that.
Yeah,
It was
and they've
Dodgers
been
Friday night.
horrible since then. Yeah.
But Lindor's been smoking the ball. His
Yeah.
best friend's back in the clubhouse.
That's true. Oh my goodness, I didn't think about that. Get
Sneaky one.
Javi
And then
Baez back. Where's Javi Baez?
bring them all, get the band back together. But then the other bad thing to talk about is, again, this is we did the medium bad thing first, the most bad thing, the medium bad thing, and then the most bad thing. Now I think this is the least bad thing, but still something we have to talk about because it happened today. Edwin Diaz, the weirdness is still weird. He had an
Yeah.
outing today where he blew the save, his first blown save, and like since I think it was May of 2022. Of course, he skipped a whole year, but he didn't blow a save that whole summer, the whole fall in 2022. It's also his first save appearance, opportunity in 2 or 3 weeks, which is a weird thing because his team actually has kind of been winning, but not in safe situations. And he didn't throw any fastballs to a Rays lineup that
I mean, he did, but not many.
I think he threw two total in 19 or 17 pitches. Savant had two pitches that were unidentified, so that was weird. So I don't know exactly what it came out as, but 15 sliders against a Rays lineup yesterday. They struggled a lot against that Christian Scott fastball and didn't hit great today against Luis Severino with a heavy fastball diet. So just it was just probably a comfortability thing. And then through 7 sliders in a row, Randy Arozarena has been having the worst year, the worst stretch he's had of his entire career. And the home run barely got out. It was 6 inches above the wall. It was 200 expected batting average. Only home run at 15 out of 30 parks, but it tied the game in a game that the Mets were just hanging on by a little thread the whole time. 5-4, 5-4, 5-4. Reed Garrett, like guy on, didn't get in. Sean Reed Foley, Jorge Lopez, another good outing by the bullpen in total. Giving up, if you have your relievers pitch 4 innings, 5 innings, you get one run, like it's not that bad, but it's not good. And that fastball has lost life since the surgery. It has 2 less inches, or two now technically, because Savant does not invert the vertical break. They just do vertical drop. So lower numbers are better. If you're like 11 to 12, that's like that will be a good IVB. But where Edwin used to be there at 14 inches of vertical of drop, now he's at 16 inches. So there's 2 less inches in the vertical break. And you mentioned it when we were at the game the other day. You're like, what's Edwin's IVB usually? And I was like, it's usually pretty good. It's usually around like a 16, 17, gets to 18. Like not elite, but still very good with velocity. You're like, yeah, that fastball was 11 and 12. So I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So Edwin is not throwing that fastball a lot. And this is a miss by me because I said a few weeks ago I thought the slider was looking worse than the fastball because it seemed fine, but the fastball is now looking bad. And it's clear that he's going away from it because the life just isn't there. And when the velocity is not over 100 and the life isn't there, now it's in a bad spot.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't like throwing 7 sliders in a row to Rosarena too. Like I know he is a dead red fastball hitter. That is the scouting report on him. But even just like change it up a little bit. Like you give a guy 7 attempts at the same pitch over and over again, especially a major league hitter the quality of Randy Rosarena. He's going to hit one, especially when, I mean, Edwin hung that one too. That was just like low and inside, backup slider, didn't work. And that slider, like what makes these pitches work so well off of each other is when he's able to mix them. Like that fastball, again, has never been like the craziest pitch for him. It's always been that slider, right? But what made it so good was that those pitches tunneled so well off of each other. They moved differently. You had to think about both. You didn't give Randy Rosarena even a thought about seeing another one because you threw 2 the entire game.
And it still barely got out. Like, god damn, it was so like to win that
I
game,
know
to
it's
want to
15 to
won
30
that game.
parks.
I know you changed that series though, because you squeak out with the one. We can still be positive about Christian Scott, and it's like the bullpen still again. I know it sucked that we'll talk about. We're gonna move into it now, but like Ottavino like blew the Christian Scott win, but he still was just like he just always a sweeper happy. Like it's a field pitch. Once we just couldn't throw a strike, and I pissed me off that he was scared to throw one towards the end of that when he started walking in runs, but the bullpen's still been so good this year. It's been the backbone of this team. And I hate that like they're being magnified for the blame of these losses when it was a couple cheapo runs in a massive, massive weekend for them pitching. And it's just still good stuff. But to have gotten out of here with one win makes us feel a lot different. They get swept. And I think Ron said it today in the broadcast. The Mets haven't won a game in Tropicana in like 9 years now. I think it was 2015 or 2017. They've been swept the last two
I
or
still get
three times they've been there.
war flashbacks to that 2020 COVID series out in Tropicana. I think we were having a party at our apartment, and I remember like going in and out watching the game and
That was
being like, "Yeah,
21.
I actually don't." That was 21.
Yeah, that was when this like the 21 season, like right down the tubes.
Oh wow, okay, I guess I don't
Because
remember that well. But I was just
Pete was playing with a broken wrist, tried to play through a broken wrist, and that killed him that season.
I think it was also the COVID year, dude.
Maybe they haven't. I don't remember the
Because
last time they won a game here, so that's it.
remember, you bunched up with the teams in the East. So we
No,
played
I
in
remember.
Tampa Bay.
I know that, yeah, for sure. But I don't know.
I remember
I don't
David
remember.
Peterson having a good appearance, but then they sucked and they couldn't hit and do anything. Also, games
He's
in the Trop are
21.
so weird. That's like such a bizarre stadium.
Yeah,
I don't know about you watching it, but it felt like every ball that was hit was fucking shit on.
there was also people. Jose Siri lost multiple balls in the lights. Like a couple fly balls were dropped by Siri and Marte. Did Marte drop one? I might be thinking of a different series. But also there was a play today where Caballero hit a foul ball off one of like the railings on the top and it bounced
Catwalk.
back into
Yeah.
play and McNeil caught it. But the ump said no because the rail it hit was in foul territory. But if it hits part of the roof in fair territory, it's still fair. So they really had to like identify where it actually hit if the ball was in play or not. It's a weird place. They're getting rid of it in a few years. I don't think they have a home yet. Have they picked a home? But I don't know. It's
Don't
also
think so.
the other thing that pissed me off about this series of this team is like everyone was like, this team sucks. They scored the fewest runs in baseball. They just got swept by the White Sox. This is baseball, guys. What you do for 3 games
Yeah.
doesn't define your season. Just because you get swept by a shit team doesn't mean anything. The Mets just beat the
Hitter's
Dodgers in the
bad.
series 2 weeks ago. How good do you think they are? The Mets this season
Beat
have
the
beaten
Braves.
the Dodgers and the Braves in series, and we're gonna eat those words because Mets are playing the Braves next weekend. But like just because we got swept by a team that got swept by the White Sox, but then we've beaten the two best teams in baseball, like what's the transitive property of if we're actually good or not? Like, so that's pissing me off because this is a good baseball team. I'm telling you, the Rays are just they do too much to ever actually be bad. And you've talked about this a lot that it seems like sometimes the Mets are like woefully ill prepared, like game plan wise for these games. The Rays are not. The Rays have a
No.
fucking game plan every single day. The Rays came out against Christian Scott and were like, we're swinging at
It was
everything.
awesome.
Everything's going to be in the zone.
It was
The
awesome.
Rays against Quintana, they were just waiting for those sinkers. They were letting the curveballs. They're spitting on those, like waiting for the sinkers, just murdering them. It was just against Severino. It was a game where he didn't have his command, which is like again maybe not a game plan thing, but I don't know. Even against like Edwin, he's been throwing way more sliders than fastballs. They were waiting for those sliders, and he kept throwing them. So Randy Rosarena winds up sitting on one. They're a team that relishes the fact that they have amazing game planning and are ready game by game for everything they're going to see. And they're just because of all that, and because the team, the roster is still good. Like they're never going to really be bad. But this year might be the worst iteration we've seen in them in 5 years. So it's like a team that again is in the same glut as the Mets in the middle of the power rankings in baseball, but just you got by them. Even with two 50-50
Yeah.
games, it's still just frustrating.
I remember listening to another baseball influencer who said the Rays play bad defense and don't base run well, and I did not see that this weekend. That's for sure.
No, they did those. I mean, Jose Siri had a horrible series in center field. That guy's
Yeah, but
also
that's not his fault.
it's partially his fault. It's like put the ball in your glove. He plays there every day. I mean, what are you doing? Whose
Oh,
fault is it if it's not
it's
him?
hard. It's
Harrison
hard.
Harrison Bader had a
You
really
never
good
caught the
series in
ball in the
center field.
lights.
Harrison Bader had a good series out there.
He's a king, but I'm going to cut Jose Siri slack, especially the roof is white. That's crazy as well that they have a white roof with a white baseball being hit. That's so stupid.
He dropped the ball on Sunday, and Ron called for him to be taken out of the game. He was like, he can't try to catch the ball like
Wow.
that. He's trying, or maybe that was the one on Saturday. I can't. It's all blending together. But he was like, that's a showboat catch. You got to put 2 hands on that ball, son. It's like I wouldn't be surprised the manager could calls his number right now. I was like, I don't think he's gonna do that, Ron, but that was funny. But that's enough of us
What
being
else was
grim.
ugly?
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I think that was all the ugliness. We were grim for a half hour just now. We had to get it out. But
Okay.
can we talk about Christian Scott now? Is it time?
Yeah, let's get positive for the last half of this podcast here, because boy oh boy was Christian Scott everything as advertised, maybe even better because we
So much
actually
better.
finally saw it, and especially I'm going to jump the gun here after that first inning, which was a little bit tough. That was a test. That was you talked about the Rays game plan. They knew Christian Scott fills the strike zone, something that you were concerned about. If there was anything about Christian Scott, maybe threw too many strikes, maybe too much in the heart of the zone. Even Adam Wainwright, who was phenomenal on the game, can't believe I'm saying those words out loud. He was the best national color commentator I've seen in a long time. He was like, let's see how the major league hitters adjust to that. And the Rays came out swinging, attacking. You throw first pitch strikes, we're going to jump all over it. And you saw some guys take some good hacks. Me and you even texting each other, being like, uh-oh, they're swinging. This could be bad. And then Christian Scott just got through it, got that huge double play with Brett Beatty, and then was just so fucking in control the rest of the game.
No, it was like butter. And it was cool that Hefner talked after the game that Scott has had these kind of shaky first innings through the minor leagues through his whole AAA season. And we've referenced that too. I said a couple times, like he's given up these big home runs in the first inning, but he always just seems to settle in after that. And then again, what?
Did you see the fly ball that was hit? I don't remember
I
who hit
texted
it.
you.
It
I texted you.
might have
It
been
was
Jose Siri, yeah,
it
to the
was Siri.
warning track, and he got pissed. He was like, "Fuck!" And he thought he gave up a home run, and it was caught 25 feet before the
Yeah,
fence. And I was like, "That's definitely the fake AAA ball." Like having
100%.
PTSD in his head because he thought for sure that ball was tagged, and it really wasn't even close.
No, and I like the big thing about this is that he was like wearing his emotions on his sleeve for a lot of this start. Like it was a cool, fun mix of like poise with like 10% cockiness, which I think you kind of need as a pitcher, especially as a pitcher that's going to challenge hitters over and over again. It's just watching Christian Scott in this game gave me feelings for a Mets debut I haven't felt in over 10 years.
Well,
Syndergaard,
what were some
Harvey,
of the words you
DeGrom.
wrote down here on the notes here?
I think the first thing I wrote was just a conglomeration of letters. I just banged my keyboard like 4 or 5 times. I tweeted I was barking like a dog after one of the strikeouts in the 5th inning. And then the notes I just wrote sex because I was like, this everything is like what I thought and more. Like his family was there. He said they had 50 people in the crowd, which was amazing. His dad talked to Ken Rosenthal. His girlfriend was there. Everything about this was amazing. It's got to be a lot of butterflies to like be out there about that close to your home, 50 people in the stands. And he was like, I didn't even think about it. This guy didn't really care. He was like, he's like,
No,
I'm fine
he's
about all this stuff. His dad was like, yeah, we thought he was gonna be nervous. It didn't seem like he was nervous at all. But even everything about what he did on the mound, the pitches here, leaves us to be really encouraged, Mets fans, because that first inning was tough, but the way he battled against Randy Arozarena, who I know has a bad batting average right now, has had a bad month of the season. He's the best player in this race team. He's been one of the best players in Major League Baseball over the last 3 or 4 years since he jumped on the scene. Having an 8-pitch at bat against him, challenging him with fastball after fastball in the zone, not catching up to him, and the 8th pitch of an at bat with the bases loaded, gassing him 96 down the middle, daring him to hit it and throwing it by him. And the next pitch, getting a huge double play of Harold Ramirez. Then after that shaky first inning, retired 12 Rays in a row, mowed down that lineup like they were minor league hitters. It was fucking amazing. And even when guys were getting on base towards the end of the innings, even when guys were kind of like hitting the ball a little bit, there was very little trouble. He only allowed 3 hard hit balls, 1 walk. That was a war of an at bat. He was, again, poised, confident, just cocky enough to say he wants it. He had some funny ass facial expressions on the mound too. There was a moment where he was like, had a 2-strike pitch against Harold Ramirez, and
oh
they like
yeah.
came set, and then Ramirez called time, and Christian Scott just like looked at him, like rolled his eyes, like stuck his tongue out a little bit, like kind of just fucking with him. Then he
Dude,
had one where he was walking off the mound, he was like saying "Let's go," like pounding his fist, like it was fucking great.
I think he tried to make a strike 3 pitch and, like, steal one off the corner because the umpire was horrendous. It was giving, like, a
Yes,
foot on each side of the plate. He was so bad. Shout out to him, though, helping Christian Scott out a little bit. But he tried to steal one on the low outside corner, didn't get it, and he kinda laughed. He's like, "Alright, you got me. Like, I
yeah,
tried. Like,
that was the walk.
good at bat, tip your cap." Yeah, it was for a walk. Couldn't get it, ended up walking the guy. But everything that he did, like the stuff we always knew was going to be good. Adam Wainwright even mentioned, he's like, "Are you guys hearing his fastball?" He's like, "His fastball's so loud." He's like,
It's
"That shit's
whizzing.
ripping through the air," and it was. You would hear Adam say, "Soo, soo," into the catcher's mitt, and it just jumps. It jumps out of there. The slider has crazy movement. Everything that he was doing yesterday should be giving Mets fans just incredible feelings. I was telling my dad, I'm like, this isn't. I'm not going here in terms of player comp. But in terms of like poise, mechanics, the way that he pitched, the way that his body is built out, it's Jacob deGrom, Zach Wheeler type stuff.
It is. And even with that, like we've called him Baby Wheeler on here. And the fact he was wearing the same number as Wheeler was kind of like an
I
oh my
know.
God moment. But Wayno comped him to Kerry Wood. And Adam
Ooh.
Admin went, oh my God. It was like a whole shit. Now I see a moment where it's just like, because Kerry Wood was skinny when he started that career, and it was that big fastball slider combination. It was just ripping guys apart. But there was so many little things that he did in this that was like, this is sick pitcher. Like what you just said, understanding that the ump is giving you strikes that aren't really strikes and putting in that spot over and over again, that's insane pitchability from a rookie. A guy make his first start of his career. Like that's ridiculous. And every single one of his pitches was doing things that I was just like instilling tons of confidence. The life on the fastball, you just said, 16 inches of inverted vertical break was playing up because he has that really, you guys now see what I'm talking about with that really flat arm angle, that arm slot where he releases it. It's like at his shoulder. It's just like this. It's kind of like the famous Bengal Phillip Rivers throw attempt. He's doing it with a whippy
Yes.
arm action coming in 96, 97 miles an hour with crazy vertical break on it too. The way it was running with him glove side away from the right-handed hitters and into the lefties, it's just like, it was like coming up on guys, scaring him. I couldn't believe it. And then got 8 whiffs and 22 swings, and he just in the zone with it all night. That pitch was in the zone like 80% of the time. Guys weren't even close to that pitch. And then the big one is the sweeper, a pitch that I have to say he started throwing in games for the first time this year, a month ago. Spring training really was the first time he ever actually threw it in game. And it was his only pitch at night with over 50% chase rate, but it had ridiculous whiff rate on it, and he threw some fucking disgusting ones to Caballero and Harold Ramirez. He was throwing some of them, breaking them off inside to the righties too, which when he's throwing that pitch 85, 86, 87 miles an hour with that much horizontal movement, it's crazy. And that pitch did grade out above average, I think 5% better than league average in horizontal break.
Nice.
The fastball, 3 or 4% better than league average on vertical break. So those two pitches together are beautiful. And that's the mix that where I was like, this is kind of what can make him an ace. And then he had those gyro sliders just bang right on top of the right-handed hitters. Just not right on top of throwing, like nailing the black over and over again outside in those guys. That pitch doesn't really move a lot. That's the one he got from Scherzer through Pitching Ninja. But he was just bang, 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 putting it right out there. And the one thing that I'm curious to see in his next start, which I think is going to come Friday against Atlanta, is how he's going to face
how he pitches
lefties.
to Omar Narvaez.
Yeah, hopefully not. But it's facing lefties. I think this game they only had one or two lefties in the lineup in total. I can't remember who they were, but I remember looking at the lineup like, oh, it's a very righty heavy lineup. This is great for Christian Scott's debut. But I really want to see that because the split change was something that wasn't really working for him. He wasn't really placing it, but he wasn't throwing it very often. So I do want to see how he gets the lefties. But everything was awesome. And something that was like the main criticism of him, Wainwright said that, athletic writer, friend of the program, Michael Salfino was saying it to me. I got an argument with him on Twitter because like you're not speaking facts right. You're just saying things that you heard. People were thinking he's like throwing too many pitches in the zone. He's not getting enough chases. And he had a 70% zone rate in this game. But you all right?
I just like I smacked my mic. I tried to move something and I just crushed it right now.
It's fine. But he's 70% zone rate, which is insanely high. League average is like 52%. So he was just throwing like a lot of pitches strike zone. I get that's a little weird, but he was still getting tons and tons of chases in this game to the point where it was way better than league average. I want to find the tweet right now because I was jawing back and forth with Salfino because he was trying to like tell me he's not ready. He needs to get more chases. Whereas I had some good data on this. God, I got it. I'm scrolling. Bad radio. Really bad radio.
But the
Here it is.
podcast,
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's all podcasting radio. It's all the same stuff. 36% chases overall on Christian Scott's pitches in this game. That would be in the 95th percentile of the entire league. And his sweeper in this one, which is his chase pitch, because that's his pitch that really moves the most, especially against righties, because no lefties in this game wasn't really throwing the split change. The sweeper had over a 50% whiff rate. There are only two starters in all of baseball who have a sweeper with a 50% whiff rate this year. It's Ryan Weathers and it's Sonny Gray. Sonny Gray known for having the best sweeper probably right now in baseball. So people saying that he's not getting enough chases outside zone, doesn't really have the out pitch yet. Would have been one of the highest chase rates for any pitcher in the league this year, and one of the best chase rates, whiff rates for a sweeper for any pitcher this year. So both of those things, not chase rates for a sweeper, not whiff rates for a sweeper, chase rates. So it's awesome, guys. Don't be afraid of this. This is something really good that's happening. Everything about him mentally, physically is perfect right now. And so a couple people are DMing me on Twitter being like, oh, do you think he's going to start next weekend against the Braves? Like, I think they're going to try and move him around to avoid the Braves. I was like, dude, this is the opposite. We need him to face the Braves. He is the best pitcher on this team. It happened instantly right there. Fire, like Mark showing for the YouTube people out there. He's the best pitcher on the team. I said a couple weeks ago that he's the best starting pitcher, healthy pitcher in the organization, only behind Kodai Senga. It'd be close. He's that good. He's so fucking good. Like, we should be maneuvering the rotation so he faces the Braves, so we have a better chance to actually win one of those games, because he is the fucking truth, and I can't be more excited.
Yeah, Christian Scott is awesome. I'm not a pitching guy as much as you, but I was giddy watching it. Like, me and my dad just sitting down, we were watching, like, wow, this is really easy. He's really good. Like, there's I don't feel nervous with him on there. The first inning, again, it was like, okay, all right, let's see how he gets through this. Then they got through it, and it was just, it felt like a guy who's been in our rotation for years, that he wasn't making his first start, that this is a major league frontline starter, and I couldn't be more excited about what Christian Scott's future's got to hold. Don't think he's going anywhere, guys. I think this guy is here to stay for the rest of the time.
And it's even funny because he's on the first inning, which is like a couple singles that were just well placed. Only 3 hard hit balls the entire game. It just sucks you run into the buzzsaw that is Zach Littell, who's been unhittable this year. And then Adam Ottavino walks in the winning run, which sucks. When he came out of that game, they tried to get him through the 7th, but they had to come out with 2 outs. And I think a lefty was coming up, or there was a man on base, whatever. But I think Reed Garrett came in right after him. And Christian Scott was on the top
Sean
step.
Reed Foley.
I think you might have that reverse. I think Reed Garrett came in.
You're talking about Christian Scott. I thought you meant about Ottavino coming out of the game.
No. But I think Scott really wanted the win. Yes. And he was like on the top step, like just fucking like pounding on the thing, being like, yeah, when he got out of the inning, and he preserved the win for him. It didn't let his inherited runner score as well, but just seems like a gamer, seems like a dog. Even today in Sunday's game, when Lindor got pissed at Reed Garrett for not looking back, not holding Jose Caballero at second base, where it was the most emotion we've seen from Lindor in a while, basically since he choked out Jeff McNeil. Yeah,
Yeah.
where he slammed his glove on the ground, screamed out loud. The next inning, Lindor and Garrett were talking about it, and Scott came right over, and Lindor brought him
Hmm.
into the conversation, and they were all having a conversation about holding runners on. So just love that. People say he's a sponge. Seems very cerebral in the way he's picked up these new pitches. The organization seemed like he's very keen on learning and getting better. So just those little things like that are really nice to see from a young pitcher.
Two questions for you. One, you think Reed Garrett should come out for the next inning and not Ottavino? Let's just play Monday morning quarterback here. What do you think?
I mean, yes and no. I don't know. I was fine with either way. I think that they
Okay.
knew they probably wanted Reed Garrett again to be used on Sunday, which he was used on Sunday. He faced the heart of the order in the seventh inning and got through it. So I think they wanted that. And Alfion's been like one of the best pitchers, relief pitchers in baseball this year. I wasn't really worried
Fair.
about it. It was the first time he's given up any damage since the first week of April. So it
Next
was
thing,
just he. What?
would you have let him face Austin Shenton after he walked like three straight guys? Would you have gone to someone else at that point, or do you think you let him finish it until he gives up the lead?
I probably would have just because he was nibbling so bad. It was clear he didn't have feel of the sweeper, and this was a frustrating part for me. I skipped a friend's birthday party to watch Christian Scott, which I'll say that. And then by the time I
Hell
got
yeah.
there, yeah, shout out Carly. She was like so drunk she was sleeping, but I still got to hang out with a bunch of other friends. But I did this inning once Christian Scott left. I was like, all right, I'm gonna try to make this party. I had Howie on my headphones on my city bike doing this, but hearing that it was just very frustrating. But
Yeah.
I I wouldn't I have no problem trusting him because he's one of the best relievers in baseball this year. Like he has been. But just when you're in that inning and you see he doesn't have feel for the pitch he throws most often, probably should be a little proactive, make the move. But Mendoza's hit all the right buttons with the bullpen this year. He's probably has 95% success rate, similar to when teams steal bases on the Mets. So I trusted his feel in the moment, but just it just didn't turn out well, and then we didn't have enough to come back on him.
Little note too from this game: Sean Reed Foley then walked in a run afterwards, and he came off the mound. And I gotta say, I love Sean Reed Foley. I hope he goes nowhere. I hope they keep him healthy in the bullpen. He's a psycho. He's actually pitched really well as well. Like
So
he's
well.
been great. Someone that you highlighted a lot in spring training is like, oh, another possible high leverage arm that we got for basically nothing. He came off the mound and screamed, "Fuck me, motherfucker! Shit, fuck!" He just started screaming. I was like, God, I love this dude. He's insane. Like I don't. I don't know if Sean Reed Foley is ever relaxed.
I might have to throw some bleeps on those for the parents watch it, listening with the
Yeah,
kids on
that's
the
fair.
YouTube
That's
channel.
fair.
But I'll throw some bleeps on those ones. But you said we got him for nothing. Do you remember how we got Sean Reed Foley?
Steven Matz, him
Yeah,
and
okay, just
Yency
making
D,
sure you
him
remembered. Yeah,
for Yency Diaz and Sean Reed Foley. Never forget Yency. Never forget Yency.
never forget Yancey. But last thing I want to talk about, just positivity, just before we move into the everyone's favorite segment, the media marvels here. Francisco Lindor has been completely elite since a standing
So
ovation.
good.
He's got a 160 WRC plus and 850 OPS.
How about that play he made on Saturday with the
Insane.
infield in, the ground ball over Brett Beatty's head with the infield in, backhands it, running towards the outfield, makes a perfect right to the chest throw to Tomas Nido to get the game go ahead run. I mean, shit, you're talking about how good he is at the play. He's just so good. He's so good.
He is. He's again. It's we said it. It's obvious. He's gonna drag these stats back up. He's gonna be a top 15, 20 player in WAR in the whole league again within a month. The stats are gonna be regular. The OPS. I think the WRC plus after Sunday is probably gonna get above 100 again. And it's just he's gonna wind up being the exact same 20-30% better than league average to plate, Gold Glove defense, top 10, top 15 in WAR, just like he is every single year. But some people saw a 165 average in the middle of April and freaked out. But no issues for
Yeah.
Francisco Lindor. He's the man.
No, Francisco Lindor out. I want to run what his like 100, what his season numbers would look like right now. So they've played how many games have the Mets played? What
34.
30,
It's basically it's
34?
21% through the season.
Okay, so 21% through the season. Let's just do 34 divided by 162, and then we'll divide that by 6. Yeah, he's on pace for like 25 to 30 home runs again with like 80 RBIs right now, which like, ooh,
Will
80,
go
but we
up.
also know the Mets haven't really been scoring. It's going to go up when it gets hot. So 25 and 80 for a guy who is struggling. I don't even care what the slash line says again. Not really important. Sign me up for 25 and 80 for my shortstop with elite defense once again.
All good. One of the most trustworthy, reliable, best consistent players in baseball. And it's also nice to look like for the rest of the team where he struggles so badly and he's not throwing helmets, he's not breaking bats over his knees. Just constantly they're doing the right things, saying the right things, taking plays under his wing. Oh, what?
Remember Pete used to break bats over his knee? He needs to do
Yeah,
that. Pete needs to break a bat. He needs to throw
yeah,
a
maybe.
helmet. He's got to get some anger out. He seems like he's just pent up.
And then last thing, shout out the series because we're running along here. I want to give some time to the media marvels because there's some crazy shit. But Brett Baty raised OPS
Mhm.
100 points with a 2-homer game on Friday. He had another double. He had a couple other hits. He had a couple walks. WRC plus is over 100 now in the season. Still playing great defense. Let him ride it out. You guys saw what Alec Boehm did. 4 years of being average to below average. Now he's a great player. Give Brett Baty a little bit of time. Just let him keep playing baseball. Don't worry about him. Just let him be kind of comfortable. If he's kind of bad for a few games, don't get upset about it. Just let this thing ride out. It's okay.
Yeah, he's fantastic. All right, now let's get going to media marvels because we've got some hot stuff here. First off, being James, I think you're going to be working on the editing for this episode, so I'm going to say the name. You're going to bleep it, I
I'm
assume.
taking it out.
But
Yeah.
uh, but the worst Mets fan in the world, Frank the Tank. The guy's locked in, right? Oh, he's the most woke Mets fan. He always knows. He somehow went the entire game live tweeting on Saturday and did not once tweet about Christian Scott. So for those of you who still like this guy out there, and I don't know how or why, whatever, he makes you laugh every once in a while. That's fine. I can get behind it. But for a guy who claims to be a Mets fan, he really does love hating this team. And it makes you think, is he really a Mets fan? How are you not praising how awesome Christian Scott is? I think it took his post game weirdo rants that he does where he starts drooling and biting his t-shirts and acting like someone who's 2 or 3 years old. I think that was the first time he mentioned Christian Scott. Might be the only time he's actually mentioned him.
It was the only time because he said Adam out of blew Christian Scott's debut, but in the whole game worth of live tweets, he did not mention Christian Scott's name one time. But he was kept talking about how bad Jeff McNeil is, which we didn't talk about. We still think Jeff McNeil's not playing really well right now. But again, I didn't want to
No.
make it seem like we just totally glossed over that. He is playing poorly. But again, for someone who claims to be this massive Mets super fan, this I don't know, this quasi content creator, to not mention the guy's name making his major league debut, who was completely electrifying, who took over besides for Kendrick Lamar, he took over the internet for my timeline on a Saturday night, and my Mets timeline a Saturday night. It's fucking malpractice. What an asshole.
Well,
But now what?
go back to all the things that we say though. Negative Mets gets clicks. For
Yeah, it's
Frank,
true.
his brand is to be negative. And if you guys haven't realized that yet, the Mets being good kills this guy's whole thing. It kills his shtick. He wants the Mets to be as bad as possible. Remember that. Remember that as a Mets fan if you support this guy and what he does. He wants the Mets to be as bad as possible because that keeps him alive. But as soon as the Mets franchise, organization, team turns around, this guy's dead. It's over. Nobody cares about him because then he's just this fucking loser who's yelling about a team who won 100 games like they were in 2022. It took Buck Showalter screwing up the NLDS or wild card and choking the last month of the season for him to keep alive for that year. Like, he doesn't want the team to be great. Never has, never will.
No, it sucks. But I don't want to give any more credence to that. I don't want to mention
That's
him
it.
any more than that. But just that's it. We're gonna do. And now another thing happened. This was Mark. Mark caught this during the game on Saturday. So tell us what Adam Amon said on the Fox
So,
broadcast.
yeah, first off, I didn't know that Tropicana Field was a stadium before the Rays got in there. Crazy to me that things were happening in that awful stadium, and then the Rays were like, actually, we'll play there. Apparently, they were trying to recruit the White Sox and the Giants at the time, were considering moving to Tampa Bay, said, never mind, the Rays end up being an expansion team. Rays became an expansion team, I believe it was 1998. Adam Amin, they were showing the clips and the pictures of different things going on. There goes, yeah, I was calling high school football games in this stadium before the Rays ever stepped foot in it. Adam Amin was born in 1986, so that means he would have been 12 years old or younger calling high school football games in Tropicana Field. Oh, here's the craziest twist, not the age. He grew up in Chicago, Illinois, went to Valparaiso. He's never left the Midwest before he was an analyst on TV. Just straight up lied. I mean, like, I had no problems with it. I just thought it was funny. I was like, this guy just lied on national TV for no reason.
It's insane. He's from Valparaiso. Max is from Valparaiso. That's insane that you just said Valparaiso. I never thought I was going to hear about that city again. Besides also that Sean fucking Manaea from there, of course. But yeah, you caught that. That's ridiculous. And now the last media marvel this week. We're going to spend a little bit of time about this. We told you guys we do want to start talking about a little more baseball outside the Mets, at least a few minutes every single week when we do
At the
this.
end, yeah.
Yeah, at the end. But yeah, if you get to this point, you probably like us anyway. Luis Arraez was traded over the weekend. And Luis Arraez is a lightning rod for baseball debate. If you tweet about Luis Arraez's name, whether he's good or bad, you're getting crazy engagement. It's the best. But so he got traded over the weekend from the Marlins to the Padres inside of the media frenzy. He was traded for a couple minor leaguers, none who were ranked in the top 100, but Dylan Head, who's a first round pick, who's a big time athlete, looks like he has a lot of potential, but a long way to go. And Jacob Marcy, who is
Your boy.
yeah, he crushed the fall league last year, have him dynasty league steal some bags. Woo Go, my other guy, big time, a good, solid quality reliever, good, big James trade here. But the discourse around Luis Arraez is ridiculous because people had this trade being like, oh my God, Padres fleece job. They gave up a bunch of prospects who were not ranked top 100 for like the best hitter in baseball. And I think that Luis Arraez is a good baseball player. He's a very solid baseball player. But I think what he does, and this is kind of gets kind of roped into the Jeff McNeil conversation. If you're a batting champion, I don't think it means as much in the modern game as we used to think it means. And this was exasperated no more than one of the worst general managers in the history of baseball, Jim Bowden, who's also somehow now become an even worse content creator for The Athletic. He said in an article or a video or his podcast, or I don't know where it was, but I saw the tweet, the quote on Twitter, that Luis Arraez is a combination of, I think he said, the best traits. Is that what he said? Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I think it's along the lines of that. Yeah, he's a combination of all these guys' best traits.
The best traits of Tony Gwynn, Rod Carew, and Wade Boggs. These are 3 Hall of Fame baseball players. These are 3 of the guys with some of the best hit tools of all time. I think the American League batting title is named after Rod Carew. Tony Gwynn has stats that will boggle your mind every single day. And Wade Boggs drank 100 beers in a cross-country flight from Boston to Seattle. It's like
And
these
ate
are
a full
3
chicken.
and ate a full chicken. He's a chicken man. These are 3 Hall of Famers. Luis Arraez objectively has had like 2 good years in his entire Major League Baseball career.
Yep.
What the fuck are we doing comparing this guy to these guys? And every single old baseball writer is drooling over him. And then everyone who goes on StatCast like, he's fine. He's okay. He's totally good ball player. But what are we talking about?
Yeah, I mean, he's really good at hitting the ball 150 to 220 feet in between the shortstop and the left fielder. Really good at that. And he has value when he is hitting. But the problem with Luis Arraez, and like you said, we've seen with Jeff McNeil, is that when things go poorly, there's no way out. And as we've seen with Jeff, we don't know there's a world where Jeff McNeil starts to get hit again besides getting lucky. And Luis Arraez, for lack of better terms, has just kind of been lucky. Like, he chases at a historically bad rate, historically bad. And yet those balls fall for hits. They shouldn't. There's no reason he doesn't hit the ball hard. He chases bad pitches. Yes, he doesn't swing and miss, but he also doesn't walk. There's nothing really that tells you why Luis Arraez hits 320 besides the fact that he hits it where they ain't. And that, comparing him again to Tony Gwynn, Rod Carew, and Wade Boggs, who I'm sure would get lost in the shuffle, probably wouldn't be appreciated as much if they played right now. But those guys also were elite baseball players. They were some of the best players in the leagues during those times. Like Tony Gwynn, let's just remember, Tony Gwynn was also a Gold Glove outfielder who ran like the wind for a while, was an incredible outfielder, cannon of an arm. Rod Carew playing second base, up the middle, good defensive glove up the middle, slapped the ball around the field. The game was different then. But like Luis Arraez being like those guys, I just don't see it. He's a DH.
I did understand. Arraez had 3 good seasons. I forgot when he came up in 2019. He had those 90 games where he was also great. But he were a
Sure.
130
Two and a
WRC
half.
plus. Yeah, last year 130 WRC plus. The year before that 130 WRC plus. So he's had 3 seasons where he has been a well above average hitter and he's valuable for a baseball team. But the thing that again it gets lost in everybody. You just mentioned it. He's a bad defender. He doesn't have a defensive home. So now you have a guy who can't play defense and doesn't hit home runs. He has 0 home runs right now in May. 0, none. He's also stolen 0 bases. So he's just a bunch of singles. It gets working because he gets on base a lot. He has a 360 on base percentage right now, but it's just like, again, they didn't really trade that a ton to get him. They traded some to get him. It was fair, but it just feels like a team like the Padres that right now is trapped in the fact that Jake Cronenworth has a lot of power, but he's like a first baseman, second baseman, DH that like usually is not an elite hitter. He's hitting elite right now. I think a lot of it's real, but he's not that. He's fine. Xander Bogaerts, again, aging like milk. Got to be one of the worst contracts in baseball. So happy to be in the right side of history on that one. That guy is fucking atrocious. They moved him from shortstop to second base already because he's not a good defender either. And now they're moving him from second base to DH. Him and Luis Arraez are going to alternate second base and DH as 2 guys who, again, Arraez is a solid baseball player. And he's probably at least just going to give that lineup some consistency because that's the thing it lacks.
He's better than Tyler Wade.
Yeah, like maybe a fit for that Padres team is not that bad of a thing, but it's just people talk about him like he's like this generational talent just because he has a high average in age when nobody has high average anymore. But maybe people should be like, oh, maybe people players don't have high average anymore because players don't even care to have high average anymore. Guys playing like shit right now. But Bregman said this in an interview in 2019, his best season ever. He was like, I could hit 300 with 20 homers, but I'd way rather hit 250 with 35 homers. He's like, it's better for my team. It's better for me. Like everything about that is better. And I don't know. The way that Arraez has become this lightning rod, and for Jim Bowden to compare him to 3 fucking Hall of Famers as a 27-year-old who can't play defense, it's crazy to me.
Now, I don't know if you saw the tweet from Danny Vietti, CBS guy, friendly with me, so I got nothing bad to say about him. But he put out like a
Idiot.
good bait tweet where it was Luis Arraez had basically like the same batting average on base and slugging as Tony Gwynn through like their first 5 seasons. I'm like, it ain't the same though, guys. Like, it's not the same. Like, technically speaking, yes, but also like no, because now the comparison is Tony Gwynn to Luis Arraez, not the first 5 years of Tony Gwynn to Luis Arraez's first 5 years.
Again, like if Luis Arraez does this, what he's doing now for the next 10 years, I will eat my words. I will have been incorrect.
Me too. I'll eat my pants. Like,
Totally.
that's fine.
But you can't just do this for 5 years and have fucking no defensive value. You can't do this with no defensive value and expect to be like this highly valued baseball player. And the big thing that always comes back to Luis Arraez is the famous trade for Pablo Lopez, where
Yes,
Pablo
which
Lopez has become a frontline pitcher right now for no money at all. He's on a great contract. And people still act like, oh, that was a fair trade. No, Arraez is a solid player. Arraez was traded for 3 players, the highest value of which is still in low A. The guy who's close to the major league is still probably one step away, in Jacob Marcy, who's probably a fine baseball player, but he's probably not going to be more than like a defensive first center fielder who can slap the ball and run a little bit. If Pablo Lopez got traded right now, it would be a historic haulback for him. It would be more than like the Luis Castillo trade from a few years ago. Like you'd get back an upper levels minor guy who's probably a top 50 prospect, probably another top 100 prospect, and probably another young guy who's probably a top 250 prospect with expectations that they're going to rise quickly. Luis Arraez just got traded for zero of those things. Pablo, the value of those two players is so astronomically, catastrophically different. You can't even compare with someone who you're comfortable starting the first game of playoff series versus a guy that you hope hits 2 singles tomorrow.
And did you see what Peter Bendix, their president of baseball operations, said the Marlins was that we basically got an offer that we could not refuse for a guy that we thought was going to be almost impossible to trade as we got deeper into the summer. Like, if he's this great of a player, if he's the next Tony Gwynn, why were people not making phone calls to get him if he was this highly sought after player? Again, he's not bad. He is a good baseball player.
Good baseball player.
I won't deny that. But he was getting put in the top 50 players in Major League Baseball rankings going into the season, ahead of guys like Ketel Marte. Like, get the fuck out of here. You think he's better than Ketel Marte? That's insane.
Even if Luis Arraez could play corner outfield defense like Steven Kwan, he would be a remarkably more valuable player. Even if he could
Yes.
play second base defense like Jeff McNeil in his heyday, like yes, he'd be a remarkably valuable player. But the fact that he offers no defensive value whatsoever and doesn't hit home runs, there's probably 100 players that would take a Major League Baseball over him. And again, he's still a fine player. He's still probably going to be like a 2, 3, 4 win player here and
Yes.
there when he has his really good season. And if he does this for the next 7 years, I'm wrong. I'll eat my words. But he got traded 1 year apart for a frontline starter and now for a conglomeration of minor league players who don't really have star potential. So it's hard for me to see that as like commensurate value.
Yeah, no, it was getting blown completely out of proportion of who the player that Luis Arraez is and who the player that the Padres are getting. It was being treated as if they just made this move that's going to make them the best team in the National League West.
Yeah, I mean, they got rid
Like,
of Juan Soto and they replaced him with Luis Arraez, so wash.
dude, that was the whole thing too. I'm like, you guys traded away Juan Soto so you can have Luis Arraez? What? Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
So also, Luis Arraez can't have much team control, right? Because he's been in the major leagues like 5 or 6
A
years.
year and a half, I think. Now,
It's
I
not,
will say,
very much at all.
he's free. The Marlins are paying everything up to the league minimum, so he's free. That move financially makes sense. That's a good move financially, but like, I don't know. He went 4 for 4 in this debut. Everyone was tweeting me, "You're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about." And they went 1 for 5 today, and nobody said a word. It's like, that's what happens when you hit the ball soft.
Again, I think he's always going to be a good hitter. What he's done now, because it's been years and years and years of doing it, like he'll have an OPS near 800. And
300
it's going to
hitter. Yeah.
totally, and he'll have the average near 300. He's like the worst defender in baseball. He's worth -8 outs above placement this year. It's the worst in baseball right now. Like if he was doing this again with even average defense, he'd be so much more valuable. He's just not. And people sometimes forget about how important defense is in baseball, but it's very important. One guy who forgets about that too, you got in a spat with. I want to do this for 5 minutes before we do our preview of the Cardinals series, but we had a battle of Mark versus Eric Hosmer on Twitter, which there's a lot of Mets fans out there who are probably like, fuck yeah, kill Eric Hosmer. But Mark went toe to toe with him, a couple guys in the baseball media space, and it was hilarious because Hosmer, seeing I think a little bit of himself in Luis Arraez, loves Luis Arraez, of course.
Yeah, he quote tweeted about Peter Bendix, again, the Pobo of the Marlins, being like, we're not going to make the playoffs this year. It was unlikely. And he's like, you inherit a young team who made the playoffs, have a second-year manager of the year last year, and we come in and blow it up immediately. Bold strategy. And it was like, first off, the Marlins were so fake last year. Everybody knew it. Everybody in the world was like, this team is not a playoff team. They had, I think, a negative 70 run differential or something like that last season. By the way, he didn't do that to start the season. They're 9-26. Like, he saw it and went, shit, okay, the magic's over. We got to start this thing over. You didn't inherit a young team either, by the way. Tim Anderson is the starting shortstop for the Miami Marlins. Josh Bell is playing first base. This isn't a young team. Like, they have young players, but in terms of like actual young good guys, there's not many on this roster. So it was getting blown out of proportion. I told him that he was wrong, that it was a fluke. I said anyone with a brain knew they were going to struggle this season. That got him. I knew that was going to get him too when I said anyone with a brain. I knew that was going to make Eric Hosmer that idiot bite. He actually followed me back, and then I found out he unfollowed me. So that's why I'm coming back at you, Eric Hosmer, you little bitch. Don't unfollow me. I could have helped you. You have a fucking sports media thing that has like 200 followers on Twitter. I will have loved to collaborate with you. But now you think you're too big. You big leagued me a little bit here. You followed me back and then you didn't. But moral of the story is Eric Hosmer don't know ball, and that's why he's not playing anymore.
Totally. And he just totally neglected the fact that the Marlins have lost their two best pitchers, Sandy Alcantara and Yuri
Yes.
Perez. And Jesus Luzardo's been in the IL for 2 weeks. And Tanner Scott had a legendary season last year. Now he can't find the strike zone. And AJ Puck was one of their best relievers last year. Now I tried to make him a starter. Now he stinks. And Jake Berger, who was like one of their best hitters last year for no reason after the trade deadline, also is hurt on the IL. Team's in shambles. And Jazz Chisholm is playing like dog shit. Like, the team sucks.
Oh,
The
and they
team
have no
obviously
farm
sucks.
system.
Yeah. So again, I think credit to Peter Bendix for having just like not going with sunk cost fallacy, realizing that the season was lost, totally lost. People are like, how could you say this? Like, you fucking watch this team play, they're horrible. And again, like, maybe they could have grinded their way to being 5 games out in August. Like, maybe that's like good baseball etiquette, but it's also like, I don't know, is that really worth it in the end? Mets fans, how happy are we when we sold last year and how great that wound up for us? So it's just good on him for doing that. He's getting murdered right now by the Marlins fan base.
We
And
sold to
just
those idiots. We gave them David Robertson. They gave us Marco Vargas.
That's what I'm saying. But so again, it was a funny thing where like you see the two schools of thought of like baseball like go against each other, and I'm very interested. I'm not really against Luis Arraez. Again, I still think he's a good baseball player,
No,
but it's just the
yeah,
way
I mean,
that
I kind
he's
of have.
regarded and the fact that he was traded for Pablo Lopez, who's a fucking ace. It's crazy to me. I'm excited to see how these next like 5 to 7 years play out because I want to see if he is Tony Gwynn or Jeff McNeil.
Yeah, man, those are very two different players. God damn it, Jeff, play better, please, Jeff.
Still room for Jeff. Room for Jeff hard as fuck. But
series preview, we'll keep it short.
Yeah, keep it really short. We're going to St. Louis, home of Metro Boomin. Shout out Metro Boomin, dog. But it sucks we still don't have an off day. We have to play 3 more games till we get the off day on Thursday before the Brave series. But pitching matchups this series, as they are right now, 7:45 starts for this series. So that kind of sucks a little bit. Losing an hour of sleep, Mets fans. But another 92-mile-an-hour off. Sean Manaea versus Kyle Gibson Monday night.
Hell yeah.
That's going to be a slugfest. Jose Budo versus Miles Mikolas, the return, the redemption match right there. Yeah, it's going to be huge Tuesday night. And then Wednesday matinee, another not great matchup that we already just saw. Jose Quintana versus Sonny Gray. I don't even know how much I don't know how much we have to preview the series because we just played them a week ago. They are the same team. They're not playing any better. I would love to win 2 out of 3 and get the show back on the road. They just lost a series to the White Sox, and right before that, they lost a series to the Tigers. So would be really nice to beat this team.
Yes, it would be, especially in St. Louis for the best fans of baseball.
Yeah, but again, just played them. Don't really know much else about them. There's nothing much to talk about. They're still the horribly run dog shit organization, so we got to take it to them because we have to get revenge on losing that series at home.
Yes. Now, if you guys have made it this far, this would be the time where we check to see if we have any new reviews. I am not seeing any new ones for this past episode, which is okay. That's fine. I mean, we're going on an hour and 10 minutes here, but James will take a look.
I'm checking real quick because I think the Apple updates faster than where you check. But yeah, good radio. I think you guys are sticking with us for an hour. Having a lot of fun. We've been having fun, right? You guys have been like so cool with us. We've been going wild the last couple of weeks.
And you guys,
it's been dope.
What's going on?
So the last review, yeah, we got a new one from Friday. And from Tuesday, we did the one from Tuesday, Zach Gonzalez, but new one from Friday from Dougie D. Shout out you, Dougie D. Been a Mets fan for 20 years. I'm glad I found this podcast a few months back. Cool that we keep getting new listeners. It's amazing that we had the backing of a multi-billion-dollar organization for years. It didn't seem like we got any new listeners.
We didn't even get a commercial on TV.
Yeah, no. Now suddenly we're doing this ourselves. We're saying curse words. We're talking shit, and that we keep growing. We keep getting more and more listens, which is dope. But James and Mark keep it real. while also showing their excitement as well. Love the deep dives in the farm system too. Always gets me so pumped for the future after each listen. Keep up the great stuff, fellas. Let's go, Mets. Shout out to you, Dougie D. Appreciate that. We will keep up the great stuff. And dope that you guys love all the farm system stuff, because that's something that, again, Mark and I both love. We're going to try and do it every single episode for you, every single week for you guys.
Appreciate you guys for listening and watching. If you made it this far, you guys are the real ones. Make sure you're following us on all our social media at Mets'd on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Subscribe to the Mets'd Podcast YouTube channel for the video version of this. And if you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, drop us a review. You'll get shout out. Give us a rating, subscribe, download, whatever you can. Really does help us. Follow James on Twitter at
James_Shiano.
I'm Draftnik Mark with a C. Thank you guys for listening and watching. We will catch you after the Cardinal series. Peace out.
Peace out. See you guys next time. Let's go Knicks and Rangers.